want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm going to talk about the Reliquary of Truth, which is Nefer's best in slot weapon, her signature, in a second. But first, look who showed up in the mail. That's right, Kakuku showed up in the mail. He is actually a keychain, and his backpack actually opens up to the point where you can put in, let's say, a pair of earphones or earbuds, if you will. So on top of being super cute, because Kakuku is super cute, he is also very, very useful. He will help you carry things around. So yes, Kakuku has in fact showed up in the mail. And also, one other thing, I'm a little bit surprised by this, but if you squeeze him, I don't know if you could hear, well, hopefully you can hear that when I fix up the audio, but yes, he will speak in Chinese Gen Z brain rot, so there we go. With Nefer's release, we have also the release of her signature weapon, the Reliquary of Truth, and it turns out that apparently it's not just a signature weapon for Nefer, it's also the new best in slot weapon for Lisa. That's right, my wife, my lover, my life, Lisa. Glorp, as is lovingly called in Ziox's stream, is now her new best in slot weapon. Let's remind ourselves what Reliquary of Truth is. It's low base attack, high crit damage, plus 8 crit rate at R1, and after you use your skill, you get plus 80 EM for 12 seconds. Now, if your character with the weapon happens to do some Lunar Bloom damage, you get plus 24% crit damage for 4 seconds. If the EM buff and the crit damage buff are both active at the same time, they actually get plus 50% effectiveness, i.e. you get plus 40 EM and plus 12 crit damage on top of what's already there at R1. Lisa, famously, it's not Dendro, she's Electro, and she doesn't have a moon wheel either, she was given a vision. So Lisa is in fact a character who cannot do Lunar Bloom damage, so she is very much not getting the plus 24% crit damage. Yet according to TC Calcs from the Lisa main subreddit owner ArchNoC themselves, it turns out that when you compare this weapon to Lisa's previous best in slot weapon, Kagura's Verity, which of course is the illustrious Yai Miko's signature weapon, a weapon with a passive that Lisa can fully take advantage of, by the way, Glorp results in a bit more damage. Hello everyone, welcome back again. Before we continue, let me just quickly say that if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel and ring that bell icon so that you can be notified of the latest content that's going to come up on the channel. I may even maybe one day post a video about Duet Night Abyss. We'll just have to see. For the math nerds, we're talking around 5 to 8% more DPS with higher investment in your Lisa resulting in a larger gap somehow. So how is this possible? What kind of weapon power creep is going on here where a new weapon with half a passive ends up being stronger than an older weapon with a completely useful passive for Lisa? Well, the answer lies in the consideration that we're talking about all of Lisa's DPS. Now, when people think about Lisa's damage, most of the time you're only looking at her hold skill nuke, and for good reason. It's a big hit of damage, it's flashy, you charge it up, it's very, very satisfying, especially if you build her for DPS like you should, so it hits really, really hard. And I have confirmed that when it comes to Lisa's nuke, Kagura's Verity is still stronger due to the plus 48% damage on her skill, which is of course split to 36% skill damage and another 12% all damage. That's of course going to be a lot stronger than just 80 EM and 8% more crit rate. But there's always been another part of Lisa's kit that does a significant amount of damage, and that is of course Lisa's Lantern. How much of Lisa's DPS is in her Lantern versus how much of Lisa's DPS is in her nuke? Well, let's first do some napkin math by using her talent values. At level 13, her health skill with full stacks of conductive is 1035%. For the sake of comparison, let's say you're going against 3 enemies, just to keep things easier, with full stacks, which of course is a lot easier to achieve with her C6. Then the nuke effectively has 3105% talent scaling, whereas a level 13 Lantern hits with a talent scaling of 77.69. However, the Lantern tends to attack up to 29 times. Each attack will hit randomly up to 3 enemies at C4. Apparently the average is around about 2 enemies per hit, so the total talent value ends up coming out to 2,253% in a single target scenario, or potentially up to 4,506% with C4 plus against those 3 enemies. There's also her normal attacks. I don't want to get bogged down by them, they get a little bit weird. So talent wise, the Lantern is around about twice as strong as her Nuke, and according to a GC Sim rotation in an Aggravate team with Kaguras, the Lantern apparently accounts for just under half of Lisa's total DPS, whilst her Nuke only makes up about a quarter of her DPS. The rest is basically being spread between her tap skill, her charge attacks, and of course her normal attacks as well. But with Kagura Lisa, the Lantern ends up only making use of the 12% damage provided you've just used her skill 3 times recently, which should be weaker than plus 80 EM and plus 80 crit rate from Reliquary of Truth. Now to be fair, there is potentially one kind of team where Lisa can't make use of the EM buff from Reliquary, and that's of course something like Mono Electro with Seishu Shillidan. If you were to play Mommy Inquisition, for example, yeah, you're not going to be making use of that EM at all. But for most other teams, Lisa can probably take advantage of the EM buff that you're getting from Reliquary of Truth. Aggravate teams is obvious with her standard ICD. Chevy Overload teams could potentially work provided you have a character who can maintain a Pyro aura. We'll see if someone like Durin can do that as well. Electro and of course Lunar Charge teams will work because especially if you use Lunar Charge, you'll be mainly using it to buff the big Lunar Charge hits instead. Superconduct teams, of course, aka physical teams, they won't care about this though, so obviously don't really rely on that. According to a GC Sim rotation in an Aggravate team, with Skyward Atlas, a similarly generalist weapon like Reliquary since Glorp isn't in the sim yet, there does seem to be a higher emphasis on the Lantern damage, with it making up more than half of Lisa's total DPS. And I think that's going to be the big thing about any Lisa main looking to run Reliquary. One other thing that I want to point out in favor of Reliquary of Truth is that it is in fact a low base attack weapon in favor of more crit damage compared to something like Kagura's Verity. This usually isn't really an advantage or a disadvantage in the grand scheme of things, but we have to also take into account that we have someone called Kujo Sara, the general of the Shogunate army. She is usually an option in a lot of Lisa's teams, and Kujo Sara is famously an attack buffer, a flat attack buffer at that. So her buffs are usually a little bit more potent on characters that have lower base attack, which is what you're going to end up with Lisa on Reliquary as opposed to on Kagura's. On top of that, because Reliquary also comes with some crit rate in its passive, and Sara C6 is of course a crit damage buff, generally speaking, that does mean you're going to get a bit more value out of that C6 Sara buff for that crit damage if you are using Reliquary of Truth as opposed to Kagura's Verity. So if you want to be a Lisa truther, how should you build her? In both the GC Sims I mentioned, I was running TF Lisa, but with a stronger emphasis on her ult, you could potentially consider EOSF Lisa. She could be a lot smoother to play, but you would be effectively playing off-field Lisa instead. On top of that, the Sims seem to suggest that her DPS might be lower with an EOSF build, at least comparing my TF Lisa build to my Raiden Shogun build at the moment, so that honestly seems a little bit odd to me. I don't know. Let me know how you go if you actually decide to give that a shot. Still though, you might have some characters that you're already looking to build EOSF on anyway, like I don't know, Sara even. You can add Lisa to the list. If you're playing Lunar Charge Lisa with a Nefer and Ino, or possibly even Columbina, we'll just have to see, then the Not Cry DPS set should be the way to go. If you are playing with Farina instead of Ino, then naturally Marashosei should be a pretty solid choice as well. Artifact stat-wise, I think the usual attack electro crit is the way to go. However, depending on the set that you're using and the teammates you play with, Lisa might even be able to get away with an attack or hell, even an EM hat. You'll probably still want to go with an ER Sand if you're running EOSF though, since the entire point of running that set is to have so much ER that you will be able to use her Lantern a lot more often by fixing her energy economy. So that's Reliquary of Truth, seemingly the new best-in-slot weapon for Lisa. Of course, the only question that remains is whether or not I will go out of my way to get it as a replacement for my Kagura's Verity on Lisa. And the answer is absolutely not. Look, despite it being apparently a very solid 5 to 8%, and in my case most likely 8% damage increase, I will stick with Kagura's for the strongest nuke, the stronger serotonin, if you will. And even if I were to become a Lisa truther, the reality is I have Nefer, and so what's going to end up happening is that she'll inevitably end up holding the weapon instead of Lisa, because the amount of buffs that Reliquary of Truth gives to Nefer specifically is kind of gross. It's plus 24% crit damage after doing Lunar Bloom damage, which is easy mode for Nefer, and on top of that, when you have both of those upgrades, you also get a increase through all of the upgrades that Reliquary of Truth can provide. You end up with 120 EM and 36% crit damage instead. That's stupid strong. I don't think Nefer needs this weapon at all to do plenty damage in this current climate. I guess I just have a big aversion to half useful or half useless passives, even if the other half results in an overall buff to the character. I just know that I won't be feeling all that satisfied using this weapon and becoming a Lisa truther, especially with all the primo gems and, I guess, money that I have spent on something like that in order to get a weapon like that. Yeah, I won't be able to see the other buffs from that weapon. Yeah, that's going to be a no for me. Looking ahead, though, with the Hexenzirkel buffs incoming, if you know, you know, I'm actually quite curious to see what Hoyo cooks up for maybe a Knights of Favge wave of buffs. So perhaps with Varka's release, we'll just have to see whether Lisa can actually do something interesting, possibly with Reliquary of Truth, or even better, possibly with another incoming 5-star weapon that works on her. We'll just have to see. Alright, anyway, let me know what all is in the comments below. Are you a Lisa truther? Let me know in the comments. I know someone is, because they've been yapping about it in the Discord, and that's actually what had alerted me to this new reality. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. So if you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Not bad. Keep